A reading from the letter to the Hebrews. Brothers and sisters, God is not unjust. He will not overlook your work and the love that you showed for his sake in serving the saints as you still do. And we want each one of you to show the same diligence so as to realize the full assurance of hope to the very end, so that you may not become sluggish, but imitators of those who through faith and patience inherit the promises. When God had made a promise to Abraham, because he had not a greater by whom to swear, he swore by himself, saying, I will surely bless you and to multiply you. And thus Abraham, having patiently endured, obtained the promise. Men, of course, swear by someone greater than themselves, that an oath given as confirmation puts an end to all dispute. In the same way, when God desired to show even more clearly to the heirs of the promise the unchangeable character of this purpose, he guaranteed it by an oath, so that through two unchangeable things in which it is impossible that God will prove false, we who have been taken refuge might be strongly encouraged to seize the hope set before us. We have this hope, a sure and steadfast anchor of the soul, a hope that enters the inner shrine behind the curtain, where Jesus, a forerunner on our behalf, has entered, having become a high priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
The responsorial psalm, God is ever mindful of his covenant. God is ever mindful of his covenant. I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart, in the company of the upright in the congregation. Great are the works of the Lord, studied by all who delight in them. God is ever mindful of his covenant. He has gained renown by his wonderful deeds. The Lord is gracious and merciful. He provides food for those who fear him. He is ever mindful of his covenant. God is ever mindful of his covenant. He sent redemption to his people. He has commanded his covenant forever. Holy and awesome is his name. His praise endures forever. God is ever mindful of his covenant. The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
One Sabbath, Jesus and his disciples were going through the grain fields, and as they made their way, his disciples began to pluck heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, Look, why are they doing what is not lawful on the Sabbath? And Jesus said to them, Have you never read about what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need of food? He entered the house of God, where Abiathar was high priest, and ate the bread of the presence, which is not lawful for any but the priest to eat. And he gave some to his companions. Then Jesus said to them, The Sabbath was made for people, and not people for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
The first reading speaks about the promises of the Lord that are a ground of our hope. And we have to see it, especially in the times when we have even some unpleasant statistics at hand, and we learn how many among us lose the hope. So just a few days ago, there was an interview with Mrs. Michelle Jean. She used to be the Governor General of Canada, and she's born in Haiti, and she has returned there as a delegate of some organization of the United Nations, and she's working on that in that promotional program after the terrible earthquake in Haiti. And she was saying something that really struck even Peter Mansbridge, who was interviewing her, she was saying that the Haitian people, they are fighters. They don't give up. They don't commit suicide. They live and they go forth. And it is one of the things, one of the signs of lost hope, that we have so many suicides among us. Why? It is a sign that there is no hope, that we have lost the hope, and it has to do directly with the faith. But it is not only the suicides, there are other signs of lost hope. So it is, we don't know the numbers in Canada, and nobody seems to be seems to be interested in know them, because it could be pretty disturbing. But in the United States, it is known that the biggest religious denomination are Roman Catholics. The second biggest denominations are ex-Roman Catholics, and only after that come other kind of denominations. But those ex-Roman Catholics, why they have left the church, or why they abandoned their faith? Again, it is the loss of hope. And we need to hear and refresh those words of the reading today, when we hear about the promise that the Lord has made to us. And He was not promising like other people, just plunging some words. He was not promising, not even swearing by something, something or making an oath by something around us. No, he was making an oath by Himself, by the supreme authority of God, who always was there, who was here before us, and who has made us, and He will be here after us. He will continue to maintain us in that decision He made the moment He has created us. This God who does not change His mind, cannot be swayed even with our weaknesses and sins. This God is promising that, yes, I have created you with a plan, I have created you for life, and then so I will also do everything you need. Just accept that grace, or open the heart to that grace. And yes, there are so many who simply give up at some point. Give up, thinking that, yes, I have failed, and I cannot do better, and how can God accept me with my sins, with my weaknesses? And so they move away. And yes, it is that big crowd of those ex-Catholics who in some way have failed somewhere, and they think that now God has given up on me. And God doesn't give up on anybody. His will at the moment of creation was to give us life. And that life is not the life just to go there and then try for a moment, and then you will die and will be buried, and that's the end. No, He has created us for Him, for the eternal life with Him, and so it is His will that we find the way to Him, and that we follow His plan. And that we have failed, it does not mean that we are written off, we are forgotten, or that God turns His back to us. It is, yes, it just should not happen, but it is just an opportunity to go back and then say, Lord, in my weakness I have done this, I have done that, have mercy on me, and I want to still enjoy those promises you have made to me. And it is really a challenge to ourselves, to convince ourselves that God is not like us. He is not some weakling. He does not change His mind because we have failed in something, or that something went wrong. He is firm in His decision. And then we see it. It is such a beautiful story of our soul when we read the Old Testament. The Lord has chosen Abraham and his descendants, the people of Israel. He has chosen them as His nation and as His people. What they have not done to Him, it is really difficult to read it sometimes. At the Mount Sinai, they have promised that yes, of course, they will send only to God. Before Moses descended, they had already there a golden calf, and it was made by a priest, by Aaron. And it is unbelievable how quickly the story could change. There was one thing that in some way, even when they failed, there was always someone who was praying for them and who was helping them to overcome that weakness and start again. And we know that it was in the times of Moses. It was Moses who rejected even those temptations to get rid of the people and have some advantage for himself. No, he was praying for his people, and he had always that hope that with everything we still can remain the people of God, and we still can stay within that covenant, within that plan of God. Now we read it in the Old Testament as an apparently distant story, but it is actually the story of our life. That yes, we fail, and we fail in so many things, but we never should give up the hope. And then, yes, we see in that story of, I will especially mention this Moses, that we have to pray for each other, not to give up, not to go too far away from the Lord, and to keep always returning to Him, maybe with red face, but still we have to return to Him and say, Lord, I beg you for your mercy. Now be patient with me, the sinner. And we know that the Lord never changes His mind. As long as He sees some sign of goodwill, He will always help us to return to His grace and to live again. And then in the Gospel, we read about the Lord with His disciples that were walking through the fields, and it was Sabbath day. They were plucking the great heads of grain, and the Pharisees were immediately protesting that because it was prohibited. Now the law of God is strict and serious. That's true. But we also have to understand that it was made with some common sense, and so that the Lord accepts the common sense. He knows that even on the day of rest we have to eat, and so it will mean some kind of work. It doesn't mean that we have to leave the cooking for the whole week for Sunday, but we just live on Sunday. That's a normal way of life, and it does not break the commandment. It is common sense. And we see in our times even some reminders, and sometimes they may be a little exaggerated, but still there are some reminders that yes, we should take seriously the law of God. It was a friend of mine. He was a priest. He's a priest, and once he was walking in the evening. It was somewhere around the Easter or around the Holy Week, and he was coming. It was in the evening, quite dark, and walking on the street, a man stopped him and said, "Can I ask you for a small service? Could you be so kind to come with a small to do something for us?" And he said, "What is it?" And he said, "Oh, we need to move the thermostat." And he brought him. It was in the winter. He was covered, and the man on the street who stopped him did not even realize that it was a priest. And he brought him to the inside. It was a synagogue, and they were gathered there in prayer. And someone, I don't know, day before or another day, set the thermostat too high. And they were really cooked there, and they could not stand it anymore. So they wanted to change it, but they cannot touch it. And so they went out and asked for someone else, non-Jewish, to come and move the thermostat. They were not very amused when they spotted his Roman collar, and they realized that yes, it spoiled again that all that ritual purity or whatever it was there. But still, they simply did not touch that thermostat, and even a priest was good for that. It is just an example of some kind of apparently exaggeration that we cannot laugh at it, or we cannot take it as a kind of sort of nonsense. No, it is a reminder, and some of the lessons and some of the reminders must be really radical, just to send us the message. And we see that here in Thunder Bay there is nothing I know that would remind us about the same Sabbath rest. But in Toronto, at the Mount Sinai Hospital, which is officially Jewish, they have there, they call it Sabbath elevators. And so they program the elevators for Sabbath. And it means that the elevator is going, because the Jews cannot push the button, or the religious Jews cannot push the button. It will be a work that will break the Sabbath. So it is programmed that it goes from floor to floor. It always stops, opens the door, and waits for a moment, and closes the door, and it follows to the next floor. Since Mount Sinai has some, 20 or 25 floors, it is really a test of patience if someone needs to go to the 20th floor, because the elevators are, of course, slow, and there are always crowds of the people just waiting for the elevator when it will finally come, and it takes so long. But it sounds, and I don't want to mock it, it sounds some kind of exaggeration, but yes, it is a reminder that we should also observe the law of God, at least in those ordinary things and in our daily life, and take it seriously. And we don't need to go to some kind of extreme, and as you know that among us, there is no question whether we can push the button in the elevator or not. That's not a question. We can drive car, and we can do so many other things around the house. Just for our simple survival, for those simple things we need to do every day. But on the other side, we also have to remember that it is not to be abused, and that even these small examples that reproach of the Pharisees, we cannot just discard it and say, oh, they were wrong. They were not wrong. They were saying something that was right, and then with common sense we have to apply it. And it is the space that we have to see, or the space, or the area that we have to see with in our conscience. And yes, it is good to remember that conscience is not some kind of license to do what I want or what I like. Conscience, by definition, is that sacred place where I am alone with God, and in His presence. And now, if with God, it means in truth. In His presence, I decide what should I do in my concrete situation. The Ten Commandments, they are universally valid, and they are valid even for me. That's yes. Then in God's presence, if I cannot do something as it is mandated, I have to decide whether I can really omit it, or I can not act. And it has to be in the truth. And just using that example of the day of rest, yes, if I am sick and I cannot go to the Mass on Sunday, it is what I have to decide in my conscience. If I was working on Saturday and working on Monday, and if I go shopping and doing everything else, how can I say that I cannot go to the Mass on Sunday? That's we have to do in truth, or do this decision in truth. But the conscience means in the presence of the Lord make the decision that is true, that is right and just. And so the conscience, it is not some kind of opinion that I have, or I have about my needs and feelings. It is that sacred place where I am with God, and I have to educate the conscience. Who educates my conscience? It is not Oprah Winfrey or some other element like that. It is the Lord Himself and the Church. Then the Lord Himself is instructing me in the truth, and then the Church, with so many examples of the saints and of the wise people among us, the Church is teaching me, educating my conscience, that then when I have to make some decision in my concrete life, in my concrete situation, using all those examples and all that teaching, I have to say in the presence of the Lord that this or that is what I will do, and I have to take also the responsibility for that. And knowing that it has to be in truth, God sees it, and I am responsible for this decision, then yes, we have to take it seriously. And even those things when that apparently don't go exactly along according to the God's commandments, even in those things we have that leeway that we have to think seriously that God is watching me, and I have to do what is right, what is just, and what is possible in these circumstances.